Hello, everyone. My name is David Březina, or you can pronounce it David Březina, it's fine. If you manage to give it Italian spin, like Březini, you get extra points. I manage a Type Foundry Rosetta. Oh, forgot that we are in a... we were founded in 2011, and we focus on multilingual type design and language tools. And over time, we've become more and more interested in or involved in research. So we launched a couple of open source tools. One of them is called Hyperglot, which currently contains data for 782 languages, and it tries to map language needs from digital typography. So what kind of characters are needed and so on. I would also like to mention another project, Design Regression, which we operate together with Mary Dyson. It's an online mini journal focused on design for reading and reading research. So if your work is too short for the visible language, and you think it would be a good fit, get in touch. We're always looking for contributions. I'll just hold it and admit to it. So what I present today is very much a work in progress. So I'll appreciate your skepticism as well as enthusiasm. I'm just exploring what would be possible with those tools. I have long been interested in the idea of a script grammar, the proposition that scripts are not simply arbitrary collections of characters, but systems shaped by more general organizing principles. Script grammars are traditionally understood from a production or technological perspectives. Characters are shaped, at least in part, by the tools that make them. But I think that account is incomplete. Scripts are designed to be for reading. Therefore, the perception needs to factor in this scheme. There was a very nice dramatic animation of perception arriving into the field. This raises an important question. Are there aspects of human perception that influence the shapes used in writing systems across the world? If so, we might expect to find recurring visual traits shared across otherwise very different scripts. So looking for universal principles. Oh, sorry. This is not supposed to be there. But yeah, looking for universal principles across the world's scripts is in part a way of testing the idea of script grammar. What do the word scripts have in common, and where do they differ? More broadly, it may also tell us something about human perception in general. So what have others done? Researchers have been looking into this for quite a while and approached it from different fields. So what follows is a small selection, definitely not all-inclusive, of interesting relatively recent interesting papers. A paper you've probably, or some of you might have seen, an influential study from 2005 approached characters primarily as combinations of strokes, that is, features derived from the way they're written, not perceived, again. One of its striking findings was that scripts converge on surprisingly similar levels of complexity. On average, characters are built from roughly 3 strokes, which I think is an interesting finding by itself. They also found larger repertoires tend to emerge through new kinds of strokes rather than more strokes being used. Another, I don't know, thought. I have discussed some limitations of this study, But I really want to, like at this point, I really want to make the point that focus on stroke-based analysis may tell us more about production than perception. I think this is often forgotten. Now, if you remember the three-letter A's that appeared there for a short moment, they were supposed to appear at this point. And I have collected, I don't know, almost 190 something different shapes of the letter A. And I challenge anyone who claims that one single topological analysis can describe all letter A's, just do it, in a way that you can describe all these different letters A. There is such a diversity in shapes and forms for that character that single template doesn't seem to suffice. In my own PhD work, completed in 2018 here at the University of Reading, I explored the relationship between visual perception and type design practice. I found that feature-based models derived from craft knowledge, typography, type design, can predict how people judge character similarity. The study focused on Cyrillic, Latin, and Devanagari, using perceptual features and their relative salience, importance of those features. It looked at about 20 to 30 fonts for each of these scripts, which I forgot to mention earlier. The Changizi and Shimojo paper, as far as I remember, looked at the Unicode exemplars only. So basically, you could argue they looked at one font per script, which in my humble opinion is not sufficient. In another paper, Helena Mitton and Olivier Morin approached the problem differently. They argued that character complexity depends primarily on the linguistic units being represented. Larger repertoires tend to require more complex characters. Interestingly, when they included ancient scripts, they didn't find any kind of evolution. So the complexity was more or less consistent across time. In a recent paper, Kim and colleagues, some of these colleagues are also Mitton and Morin, asked participants in an online studies to sort characters into groups and explain the distinction they made. So they arrive at binary features. Does this explanation apply to this group of characters or not? Which is rather elegant. They created an online tool. You might have maybe participated. Comparing scripts with phoneme inventories, they found that scripts rely on a relatively high degree of feature redundancy, meaning scripts seem to reinforce their identity with more features than it's absolutely necessary. I think it's a fantastic study. Obviously, because of the scope, they worked, I think, with just one font as well, or one font per script. Taken together, these studies reveal several limitations. Researchers sometimes rely on production-derived features that may not align with how people actually perceive characters. Higher level features tend to be laborious to either elicit or rate. So in my case, I had to do the feature labeling myself. In the case of Kim and colleagues, they had to have hundreds of people respond through their online app. So it's a lot of work. There is often insufficient distinction between script repertoires and writing system repertoires. A script does not necessarily have a fixed character inventory. If you ask me how many characters there are in the Latin script, I won't be able to answer you. The question needs to be, what is the writing system? In the writing system of English using the Latin script, these are the characters. So often there is a bit of a mismatch that the script is studied with some sort of arbitrary character repertoire. And last, the number of fonts being studied is very limited, even though the diversity of forms is rich. So how I went about it. Contemporary models of vision often explain reading in terms of features and character detectors operating in parallel. So you might have seen this kind of diagram yesterday in Mary's talk. But if I wanted to avoid culture-specific assumptions, which is what I wanted, that's the problem of the high-level features. I needed to look lower in the visual process, somewhere here, at the physical signals available to the eye itself. At this level, vision is often described in terms of so-called spatial frequencies, patterns of light and dark at different scales and orientations. One way to think about this is that any image can be described as a combination of many simple visual patterns varying in size, frequency, strength, orientation, and position. So you can imagine that you would perhaps have 3, 4, or actually maybe even hundreds of these overlaid, and that would create the resulting image you see on your in your head somewhere. Researchers use this to assume that observers could flexibly rely on whichever spatial frequency information is best suited for a task. But later work suggested something more constrained. Perception depends strongly on size and scale. But put simply, size affects shape. So of different people, if depending on how far you sit from the screen, you would see different letters here in the top corner. There is a D, E, F, I think. And also there would be a difference between the big letter and the small letter, even though those are identical images in terms of intensity of light in that image. I'm mentioning this to show that these kind of considerations are relevant if we want to study character shapes. Furthermore, one influential study isolated which visual information people rely on when identifying letters. Their finding suggests that letter recognition draws on information distributed across different channels, different frequencies, an observation that type designers such as Tim Arens or John Hudson hold as useful. So at different sizes, we look for different features. To analyze this, in my prototype, I use something called Fourier transform. And this is a moment, you should not confuse this with Fourier. Okay, this is not a lesson on a lecture on French typography. So you might want to. Very simply, it allows us to decompose image on the left into its underlying spatial frequencies and then deconstruct it again. So I can turn the image on the right back into, with the reverse Fourier transform back into that image. That's important. That will come important later. In the following slides, I will focus on three dimensions of this information: magnitude, frequency, and orientation. So now it's becoming interesting. The second column always shows what's on the left, and depending, okay, the intensity of the pixel indicates magnitude of particle wave, and the position, sort of the angle at which the pixel is to the center controls the orientation, and the distance from the center controls the width of those bands. So it's like encoding of those. Instead of having the hundreds of images overlaid, they are represented in this image through their parameters. So it's not very informative, and no, it is informative, but it's difficult to read intuitively. So what we can do is we can filter out some parts and then reverse back into the original, or rather reverse back the transformed image. So these are created by filtering out the horizontals and verticals. And by transforming it back, we can confirm, okay, this is what have been recorded. We can take it even further and look at the dominant angles. If you want the technical details, we can happily discuss this later. I just thought it would be nicer to approach it this way. So again, there is a letter, it's Fourier transform, and I've analyzed the dominant angles from the Fourier transform, which is rather convenient, and then filtered out low frequencies and filtered out those dominant angles. And the result is the transformed image in the top right. So you can see, and this is done all automatically, although it took me ages to make it work. And in higher resolutions, these are very pretty to look at too. So what have I done? Is I picked a couple of writing systems to stress test the prototype. I'm not going to show the Devanagari because there was just nothing interesting to show at this point, and there were too few fonts. My idea is to just like run this on all the fonts I can get hands on, and all the scripts I can get, or write all the writing systems I can get clear character sets and other important stuff on. The prototype currently looks at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 features. 3 of them are defined through the angles and through the Fourier transform. And I added the horizontal stroke count and vertical stroke count, also done automatically, to compensate for repetitions, which are kind of lost in the Fourier transform. So what we can do with it? We can then look at the data for individual fonts. So different color means different font. And this is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. And I'm plotting, what am I plotting here? Horizontality. So, you can have a look and see how horizontal letters are in the Latin script and how that compares to verticality. Obvious winner here is the letter H. All the letters with ascenders start popping out with their means being higher up than the regularly sized letters. And for example, entirely different profile pops out when you look at Greek. What is maybe even more interesting is to take these features, do the projection in 2 dimensions. This is TSNE projection, and see what's happening. So this is Greek, and the hue encodes character. So if this system worked like perfectly, each cluster would be just one color. So the feature would be sufficient to determine characters into their own clusters. And as you can see, there is a mix and match, which is very disappointing, but it's a work in progress. But if you look at them closely, you kind of start seeing why some things conflate. And I think there is, something to learn from it, and I can still introduce other features. As you might have seen, there are a couple of features planned, like roundedness. So that might help me to determine between different characters. What I find is interesting here is it can be sensitive to language. So even though I'm looking here at the same set of characters, observe what will happen when I change from a study that was done with the Czech language Czech writing system and English writing system. You won't see that because we're in a PDF. Anyway, it changes, even though the characters are the same, and you could theoretically say, come on, this is the same set of fonts, same set of character shapes. They should produce the same clusters. Because they are part of different writing systems, they have different context. To put simply, English would have 26 letters, A to Z, because it's a British English, and Czech would have A to Z plus some accented characters, and those accented characters influence the relationship in the system. So the system is able, like the prototype is able to capture this, which I think is a valuable thing. You can think, I had a slide for this, but it wasn't quite visible. You can think of Cyrillic for Bulgarian. No, it better is Serbian Cyrillic, which has one character different, and Russian Cyrillic. And the system can account for that, and you would see, again, somewhat different clusters emerging, exactly because that one character is different and its form suddenly relates to others in a different way. How are we? Wow, I'm spot on. So to conclude, I have tried to show that Fourier analysis offers a promising way of studying writing systems from a perceptual rather than production perspective. It is largely culturally agnostic. We all use the same kind of eyes. Scalable, which I think is interesting for large-scale analysis, and independent of particular writing technologies. Yeah, I'll come to that in a moment. At the same time, this work remains exploratory. The feature set needs expanding in order to develop a stronger representativeness. If this approach proves useful, it could have implications for areas ranging from epigraphy to multi-script type design, and perhaps even how we think about innovation in legibility. And here's my final slide. Thank you very much for your attention.
And select two people to ask you two questions. Just to have a few minutes left.
Two questions. Anyone has a question?
You mix it.
I don't see. Yeah, I don't know how to say your name.
Srinika.
Srinika. Yes.
Great talk.
Thank you.
James's paper.
I enjoyed yours.
Yes, I enjoyed yours as well. This was everything I wanted to do with my undergrad, which was cluster this on a graph and see how the clusterings work. So you've done something that I wanted to do for a while. Obviously, a result where all the clusters are very neat would be great, but I guess life doesn't work that way. But I was wondering how much of a difference there was between fonts, or whether it was pretty consistent across font types.
Right. So the question is whether the results were consistent across fonts. So, you know, I listened to my own advice and I took the super diverse letter A's. And there it was wild. It was all over the place. But interestingly, when I took the metrics and looked for means, they ended up in the right place. Obviously, you could like tweak it. So I think one needs to either find a good criteria to select fonts that can be considered representative, or just have like a lot of fonts to arrive at levels which are reasonable representative. Sorry, just.
Thank you so much. Let's talk more later.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lawrence, go.
Cool, thank you. You intend to publish your code and methodology so people can repeat these
Yes, so there was this slide when I really thought it would be easier. I've been stuck with this for a couple of months. I think I'll give it a couple more months, and when I have something a bit more solid, I'm happy to publish it, because I think it could be used. Well, basically, one of the reasons why I started thinking about this was epigraphers looking at sets of symbols and making sense of them. Like, is this a script? Is this not a script? And I thought that this could be, like somehow done or helped with something like this. But I think it could also be used as a like advisory tool in type design software to create. Let's say I analyze 100 most common text typefaces, and then someone wants to kind of gauge their own design against it while they are designing. That could be done. So the opportunities are there. Great.
Thank you, David. Yeah, please find David later. Yeah.